Welcome to Sexology, a podcast that untangles the science of sex and pleasure. And now, with this week's episode, your host, clinical psychologist, Dr. Nazanin Moali.
Hello and welcome to episode 94 of Sexology Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nazanin Moali. Today we're going to talk about swinger lifestyle. The idea for this episode came from one of our wonderful listeners, Alma. She's from Romania, and she recommended that we do a series on various kinds of relationships. What is great is, in comparison to 80 years ago, that monogamy was pretty much the only option, and that was the acceptable option. Now we have numerous different relationship types and kinds, and people who are practicing them and they have healthy relationships. She sent me this list of various kinds of open relationships. Some of them I knew about it, like swinging, and some of them I had no idea. So I'm very grateful for her for reaching out, and we're doing this mini series based on her recommendations. And if you guys are interested to send me a recommendation, you can either complete our survey, which will be up for another 2 weeks. It takes only 1 minute. Or you can shoot me an email at drmoali@sexologypodcast.com. Although I worked with several couples who are engaging in swinging behaviors, I thought it would be wonderful to invite another expert to talk to us about this lifestyle. Our guest today is Chanta Blue. She is a licensed clinical social worker and certified sex therapist and co-owner of Blue Counseling and Wellness Center in New Jersey. She holds a BA in psychology from Spelman College, a master's degree in social work from Rutgers University, and a master's of education in human sexuality from Widener University. I hope I'm pronouncing these universities right. These are all East Coast University, and I don't know exactly how they're pronounced. Chanta's aim is to empower girls and women of color to clarify and create a career, relationship, sexuality, and overall lifestyle they desire. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Chanta Blue. Hello and welcome to another episode of Sexology Podcast. I am so excited and honored to have Chanta Blue, licensed social worker, sex and relationship therapist on our show. Chanta, welcome to our show.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on the show because when it comes to swinger communities, swinging, this is one of those topics that we didn't necessarily have guests in the past talking about it. And I know that's one of those communities that you work with. And I certainly had couples that were in the lifestyle. So I'm very excited and looking forward to this conversation.
Great. I am too. This would be fun.
Great. So let us start with a more kind of a broad and basic definition of when we're talking about swinging and swinger lifestyle, what would that entail?
Swinging usually entails more of a social, sexual interaction with folks. So it's typically recreational, and you find partners with your significant other, typically your boyfriend or your spouse or your girlfriend, and you find either other couples or other singles to engage in sex with outside of your regular relationship, kind of that spectrum of open relationships. So it's something that is definitely consensual and something that couples talk about ahead of time in order to establish some rules and some boundaries about, who are they going to be attracting, how are these sexual relationships going to look, and things like that.
And it's interesting because that can be finding other people can be challenging. I know a few couples that I work with, specifically one of them, it was hard to find people that they were fit of what they want. So what are some of the ways that people find other couples or other individuals?
So typically, folks will go to swinger parties, and parties can be in like hotels or actual event spaces. Some parties are what they consider on-premise parties, so where you can have sex in that facility. Typically, that's in a hotel room. I know in the Northeast there are some clubs that allow on-premise swinging, or it can be off-premise. So they'll have like just a regular social gathering, either at a restaurant or at somebody's house, and then you can meet some folks and then take them back to your own hotel room or your own house, whichever you decide. Also, folks will find other partners on online communities. So there are a few online communities where people kind of like Tinder for swingers in a sense, where you can meet them and chat and kind of get to know them before you make that next step of actually having sex with each other.
Very cool. And I'm kind of curious about how did you get interested working with this community?
So it's actually somewhat personal. I did have a good friend who was in the swinging lifestyle, and she invited me and another friend to an event, and it kind of piqued my interest from there. I was like, oh, this is like so cool. I've never really, seen this population before or heard of it. And I was just starting my journey into becoming a sexuality educator and therapist. Like I was contemplating it, but hadn't made any steps to kind of start working on it. So she took me to this event and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then so I started going to more events with her and then realized like, hey, there's not a lot of Black folks or just people of color in general in these spaces. And I started to become curious about that. And so a lot of my research in my second master's program was focused on like minority populations within the swinger community.
It's wonderful to have open-minded friendship and friends. I have to tell you, since I'm more involved with sex therapy, sex educated community, like the events I'm going significantly is more entertaining and engaging.
Mm-hmm. They are.
Yeah.
Our events are always amazing. I actually just came from a conference in Atlanta called Sex Down South, and it was just the most open and inclusive environment. And it was just everybody was being themselves, and it was really awesome.
I want to follow up with the comment you mentioned about people of color and the swinging communities. What did you find in your research? What was it like to do the research?
So a lot of the swinging community and a lot of the previous research that was done focused mainly on white populations. So the majority of swingers are white, middle-aged, upper to middle class folks who have like college degrees and good jobs, like professional jobs, like doctors, lawyers, teachers, things like that. And so I was always curious, okay, what about other populations? What are their demographics? And like socioeconomically, there were a lot of parallels. But once again, like I said, just ethnically, there was that diversity. So it is something that people with a little bit of money can usually participate in. Not to say that other people who may not be on that socioeconomic level can't participate in it, but it's more likely that you'll see people who have professional jobs that will participate in the activities just because it costs some money. So a lot of times going to the different clubs and events, you have to pay a significant amount of money to enter. So I think that definitely is a factor in the demographics.
That is interesting. I know I saw, at least with the community I work with, the couples I work with, they were a little bit more diverse in the sense that I know there was a couple of them Latinos, Middle Eastern, but certainly Caucasians. And I can understand that if that's one of those things that you have to pay. I know they were sharing with me, they were going to cruises and there are clubs and all of that. I can see that you need to have money to be part of that scene.
Definitely.
I guess the other part of it that I want to talk about as far as like the swinging, is it like couples going in, or if you're single, you can be part of the scene? Can you talk to us more about that?
Yeah, so it's traditionally a very heteronormative environment, meaning that there are a lot of male-female couples. But in just kind of my research, I did see some like lesbian couples and gay couples at a few of the events as well. But also there are singles that attend. female singles are usually called unicorns because
Right.
there are not too many of them. They're very rare who just want to have sex with the couple together. So they consider that to be very rare. A lot of times, the female partner, the single female partner will just be attracted to the woman or just be attracted to the man and not want to engage with the couple. So there's a lot of different variations in who does participate. It's very uncommon to see single males in these spaces. A lot of times from just people I've spoken with is more of a safety issue, just because I guess typically, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but typically men are very aggressive in that sense, in the sexual sense, or they just kind of are very like just pushy and, wanting to dominate the situation. So I know a lot of the clubs will tend to not allow single men in, but they'll allow single women in.
That is interesting. Yes. It's one
Mm-hmm.
other area that women have a kind of upper hand when it comes to it.
Yeah.
It seems like the single women unicorns are like welcome, and the men,
Mm-hmm.
and I can understand for the safety, but that is very interesting. And as far as their kind of dynamic of their relationship, so my understanding is like most of the time it's purely sexual, like they do the social thing and that there's sexual activity afterward. Do you work with couples that like these kind of this kind of like sexual relationship morphs more to a interpersonal relationship, or like kind of the turns to polyamory?
Mm-hmm. So traditionally, swinging is solely about the sex. Like, we're not having any additional relationships, no emotional connections outside of our sexual relationship because my emotional connection is saved for my spouse or my partner. But a lot of the folks that I work with, in this lifestyle, they are looking for people who they can have genuine friendships with first. They may not have like a romantic connection with them outside of the bedroom, but they definitely want to be friends first. So some categorize themselves as friends first swingers or in the lifestyle to connotate that this is like who they are. They want to gain social connections with folks. It's not just about the swinging. In my research, I've also come across a new term that kind of mixes swinging and polyamory. So it's called swallies. I don't know if you've ever heard of
No, I
it.
haven't heard about it. That's interesting.
Yeah, I forgot who coined the term, but it's swallies, and it's for those who enjoy both casual or recreational sex. And may have that deep emotional and erotic connection with someone, not just the physical sexual aspect of it. So it's pretty cool. So it teeters that line of polyamory in the sense that, yes, they're having an emotional connection, but they may not be like dating this partner. They may not be like in a full-fledged relationship with them, but they really truly care about the partner that they're having the sexual relationship with outside of their marriage.
That is interesting. And it kind of makes sense that most of the time, at least I know for me and many females, it's like you want to be able to like the person in order to be go in bed with them. So I can understand that, there gotta be some level of connectivity going on.
Have sex with jerks all over.
Right.
I mean, I can see them and make sure they're good people.
Right. I can see like, they can, if they're kind of like different, they can be exotic and erotic.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to make sure they're good people.
Yes, definitely.
So I'm kind of curious to see if you did any research or you read about any research about the quality of the sexual experience compared to kind of monogamous relationships or other kind of consensual non-monogamous relationships.
The actual academic research varies a lot when it comes to that. So some people say there's more satisfaction in their monogamous relationship. Others are saying, there's more satisfaction in their swinging or open relationship. So the research says a little bit like, it's kind of still conflicted with that. But from the couples that I work with and I talk with, a lot of them do have very satisfying relationships, both, in their committed relationship as well as their sexual relationships. It allows them to really explore different types of sex that maybe they can't get from their partner, or their partner just isn't able to provide for them. So they're getting all of their needs met, and not putting that pressure solely on their spouse or their long-term partner. And I think that's a really cool thing to be able to understand that, okay, my partner can't be my end all be all. Like, they can't just give me everything that I need, because they're human. They have their own needs, they have their own lives, they have their own things going on. So it's important to not necessarily just spread the love in the sense, but essentially spread the love.
And I think certainly helps with kind of creating novelty, excitement. So I can see it can be a very healthy thing for many couples and individuals. I guess I can see then on the other side of it, when people, like any other relationship, when you open up the relationship, the jealousy component can be very challenging. So how do you recommend people to navigate that piece?
Communication. Communication is going to be key in any type of relationship that you are involving yourself in. And I know a lot of the controversy, at least when I was first starting to learn about different types of relationship styles, is that, people think, oh, if I'm in this polyamorous relationship or I'm in this open relationship, that I experience full compersion and I don't get jealous, about my partner being with somebody else. And that's not the case. Jealousy is a natural emotion that we get. And, we have to learn to kind of sit with that jealousy and really figure out, okay, where is this coming from? And I've found with my clients that a lot of times the jealousy comes from a fear of abandonment or a fear of not being adequate enough, not being, that person that our partner needs or wants, in a sense. And so just kind of unpacking that and exploring that through talking with your partner, or, going to a therapist, either individually or with your partner, to kind of unpack that a little bit and see where is that coming from, and what now does your partner need to do for you in order to help you overcome that? Or what are some steps that you need to take to manage your jealousy and kind of figure out what's going on?
And I think with swinging, it's one of the more challenging kind of non-monogamous relationship when it comes to jealousy, I can imagine, because I have clients that are on a consensual non-monogamous relationships, and the arrangement they have, they just don't talk about it as much, or there are like very firm boundaries about what you're going to share with me and what you're not going to share with me. But I think that would be different if you're going with your partner to a swinger party or social event, because you guys know you're going in with that intention.
Yeah, it can definitely be difficult, especially if they are what they call full swap swingers. So full swap is when in a traditional heterosexual relationship, the husband will go with the other partner's wife and the wife will go with the other partner's husband. And sometimes they will go to completely separate rooms and just have different sexual experiences outside of each other. But there's also times where the couples may engage in play together in the same room. So they see everything that's going on. They see their partner's like responses to sexual activity, sexual positions, and things like that. And so, it can become a little bit more, jealousy provoking in that sense. Because if you're seeing everything that's going on and what's going on, sometimes that's better for people, because they're like, I want to know everything. So there's no secrecy. There's nothing we're hiding from each other. But then sometimes if there's that, I don't want to know anything, so I don't get jealous and things like that. So it's very convoluted in that sense that it can look different for everybody.
Yeah, and I can see it is a preference. So if you rather kind of going somewhere with your partner and doing it socially, it might be, I can see one person getting more comfort in the fact that, we're going together, we're coming back together, we know what's going on, versus in an other form of open relationships that, you don't know what would happen, what's the degree of what's the range of things going on emotionally, sexually. So I can see that it's one of those things that people need to kind of check in with themselves, seeing
Mm-hmm.
what would be a good fit for them. I guess the other kind of series of question I have is related to the misconceptions when it
Mm-hmm.
comes working with this community, and also that the couples are experiencing. What are some of the common ones that you hear?
So there are tons of different misconceptions, but I would say probably my top three is that swinging, people engage in swinging because they're unhappy in their marriage or their relationship. So they're going to this to kind of save the relationship in a sense. And I think that is completely different from what I see, at least in my office, is that couples are doing this as, in addition to their already stable and happy marriage. They, want to explore some different options so they can continue to have that happy marriage. A lot of times, my couples that I work with are great communicators. They discuss everything. They have really good boundaries set for each other. And it's not necessarily a problem within their relationship that they have decided to now become swingers. Another thing that I hear a lot is that the swinging community is like riddled with STIs and all these diseases. And actually, swingers are some of the most safe sexual people that I know because
Right.
they are very conscious in making sure, number one, they're not bringing home any type of infection or disease to their long-term partner or their spouse, or they just don't want to get pregnant. So they want to make
Right.
sure that they're taking all these steps to protect themselves. They also get tested really regularly. So they may get tested either with every new partner or every 3 to 6 months, a lot of them.
Right. Yeah. And I would imagine if there's another kind of partner there, there's like, your partner is sexually active with other people, it creates another level of accountability. So
Yes.
that I like that you're kind of making that kind of sharing that information, because I can totally see that people would kind of make that connection. And I'm
Yeah.
curious about the third one. Sorry, I got excited.
No, it's okay. The last one that I hear a lot is that they're perverts or sex addicts. So yeah, like it's unbelievable. But a lot of people think that, they're just oversexed and they're unsatiable and all these different things, derogatory comments about their sex life, but that's really not the case. They're just, expressive and they're free and they're open about their sexual needs, and that's okay. It's not something that they're overusing or over abusing in the sense where it's impacting their everyday lives, and they're not perverts in the sense of they're like molesters or rapists and things like that. They just, like I said, enjoy sex and see it as a way of connecting with other folks and just being who they truly are.
And as far as the diversity in the community, how diverse is this community, kind of globally and nationally?
So there have been studies that have said that there are like tons and tons of swingers out there that we don't even know about. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was pretty high. I want to say it was about 40% of married couples or something like that have participated in swinging in some form. This was a study that had happened like in the early 2000s, I believe it was. So it's very diverse in the sense that a lot of people are engaging in it. Racially, I don't think it's too diverse. It's probably about, I want to say 80 to 90% are Caucasian folks who participate in this. But I do think that number is shifting a little bit more as especially people in the African American community are becoming more comfortable with expressing their sexuality and really just, getting rid of that shame that has historically been kind of forced upon us. So I think is changing only, but I could also be in a little bubble because I particularly try to connect with communities of color who are in the swinging lifestyle. So I could be in my bubble, like I said.
It's interesting that depending on who we are surrounding ourselves. Our the lens we have might be different. But again, I hear that you did research on it. You're certainly more educated in this area than me. But as far as the shame piece, is it about like, some communities kind of perceive monogamy better than non-monogamous relationship? What is the shame coming? Where is the shame coming from?
It's definitely coming from that piece that our society values monogamous relationships. That's definitely one part of it. And that, like, our presidents, they've always, encouraged, getting married and waiting till you're married to have children and establish this lifestyle and things like that. And so monogamous relationships are kind of at the top of the hierarchy. And then it's, consensual non-monogamous relationships are kind of a lot lower than that. And so there's shame surrounding that, particularly for the African American community. There's shame because our culture has always been seen as oversexed in general. I even remember reading one article that said that they were surprised that there weren't more African Americans in this lifestyle because they, are seen as promiscuous and just enjoying sex. But it's crazy that was actually published.
Right. It's like it's a private thought that you give it to yourself, even if you have that bias.
Yes, exactly. But they're like our African American culture really tries to combat that stereotype that we are oversexed by repressing our sexuality completely. And for a lot of folks, we're starting to realize that no, I can still be a sexual being and still be well educated and be a good role model for the people in my community or my children or all these other things. So it's starting to come away from that piece of shame and that what we call respectability politics of how one should act and behave and dress in certain kind of situations and, how we should present ourselves to the world. So people are starting to really kind of come away from that and be like, hey, I am who I am and I'm going to enjoy all parts of myself.
I love that. And I agree with that because nothing good coming from Middle Eastern culture, I can tell you, nothing good can come from repressing your sexual desires.
Yes.
So I'm all for people exploring and kind of being open about what they want. Yes, and me and you both because we work in this field. But I'm kind of curious about the global piece of it. The reason I'm saying that, one of my mentors is a psychologist. I think he's in like late 80s. I have lots of respect for him. And he was telling me, he's not a sex therapist, and he was telling me that in like early 1970s in Iran, he was talking about the clients he had. They were going to these swinger parties. And I thought that was very forward thinking of the community there. And I would imagine there are swinger community all around the globe. So that would be interesting for me to learn more about that.
I'm definitely sure about that. They're all over the world. There are swinger communities, and in some places they may be a lot more hidden than they are, especially in the United States, or they may be more open. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I do believe there is. When is there's a global organization of swingers? I know there's a North American Swing Association, but I'm almost positive there's another like more global association because even on, I think the swinglifestyle.com website, they have like kind of filters for like, different countries and things like that. So there definitely must be something out there for that. But I'm sure of it because it started back during like World War II when there were Air Force pilots who they had high mortality rates. So their, wives and significant others were dying. Excuse me, not the wives, the pilots were dying and wanted someone to take care of their wives. And so that's how that kind of developed. So, and I know they were stationed in many other countries other than just North America. So I'm sure it has expanded and grown in that sense.
Very interesting. And I can imagine that if the image that people have as this is like more toward higher SES. Do you feel that kind of higher SES Caucasian kind of people are engaged in that? Do you think it's less stigma attached to that, or you feel it's equally, the stigma is the same level as other kind of non-monogamous relationships?
It's probably not as stigmatized among that group since you see it more often. But because I'm not part of that group, I'm not 100% sure about that. But yeah, it's very interesting.
I know. I'm always, recently I've been thinking about how the different images or different things, impacts people's perspective on various issues. So I guess that was a random thought that I had. But I guess we're toward the end of our time. I want to make sure that, first of all, our listeners, if they want to work with you, they want to learn more about your practice, where can they find you?
So first, you can always find me on my website, which is www.bluewellnesscenter.com. So you can definitely reach out to me on there. I'm also big on Instagram. I love posting on Instagram. So you can find me at NJ Sex Therapist on Instagram. And those are the two main ways that you can reach out to me. And through there, you can find like my services that I offer in my actual office, as well as different challenges that I have or different online coaching programs that I have through the website and, of course, through Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This was such a helpful conversation for me and our listeners. Yes. Hopefully we can have you in future episodes.
Yes, I would love to.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Shanta. I know I learned tons of new information, and I hope you found the information helpful. As we were talking about this topic with Shanta, I was thinking about my attitude and my experiences with swinger community and swinging. So one funny thing is that the first time I heard about swinging, I learned about it, I was, I think, 8 or 9. So in our house, I guess like my parents were both working and very busy. I had minimal supervision. So what happened, we had this movie that was certainly rated R, and it was this comedy around the couples that they wanted to open up their relationship, and they were going to this swinging parties. And I think the movie was made in 1970s, and it was just lots of fun parties and body painting. And I remember from then that how much I loved the movie, how much I thought was, oh, this is fun. This is something I want to do as an adult. And that's how I feel. That's part of how my perspective towards swinging got formed. And it's interesting when you think about it. Many of our attitudes about different sexual behaviors, the kind of relationship, comes from our childhood. Because again, I watched this movie by chance, and because it was had this positive spin on swinging, I felt even now I have this positive, fun feeling when it comes to swinging lifestyle. And then also I wanted to remind you guys that you can always make an appointment to come work with me or with my colleagues. So what I'm very excited about is that I recently hired 2 great therapists, and now we're happy that we can offer you a range of pricing depending on people's experiences, their availability. So if you are interested to see me or one of our therapists, you can give me a call at 310-600-9912. And also you can make an appointment with me and others through our website at oasis2care.com. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening to Sexology Podcast. For more great content, visit www.sexologypodcast.com. Please be advised that information presented on this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health provider.